The Australian television and media industry is changing shape each and every day. But is all that change inclusive or is it a little bit exclusive? Ticket Talks starts right now. Hello and welcome back to Ticket Talks. Together with Polaron Language Services, we are looking to use language to connect communities. And whilst Polaron is the sponsor of today's program, all the views and opinions in the following segment are of course our own. And I would like to acknowledge that this segment is being held on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, and I pay my respects to elders both past, present and future. And I am joined by Director of Polaron Language Services, Eva Hussain. How are you today?
Good, thank you, Mike. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for bringing this one to our attention today. I was really excited when you sent through today's topic.
Yeah, because we are on TV and we're going to be talking about TV.
Exactly. And I couldn't help but reflect on, my part and all that as somebody who's on telly and such. So I'm really looking forward to this one. But let's talk about what's been happening at Polaron this week.
Mm-hmm. So I would like to plug in a forum that we're holding in next week, actually.
Great.
And you'll see the information on the screen. And we call it It's Not What You Say, It's How You Say It. And it's part of the Global Learning Festival. We're going to be talking about how to engage local communities, grassroots. How do you communicate with people who may not speak English as their first language? What is it that you should do if you work for a local council or some other organisation whose job is to communicate with the locals?
Fantastic, an important one as always. And so we've got miscommunication as well. What have you seen there out in the wild where someone's maybe got it a little bit wrong?
Yeah, they got a lot wrong actually on this occasion. And this is the Australian Human Rights Commission, which could and should do better than this.
Okay.
So there's some work going out there about the National Anti-Racism Framework. So currently there are efforts of asking people to contribute to that framework, and on their website there are 6 translations, like very, very minimal text in 6 community languages, but when you click on it to be able to make submission, everything's in English. So we contacted them and we do hope that they'll take our feedback on board, but it's not good enough, I'm afraid, Mike, when we're talking about such an important topic.
And to think you'd get to the end of all of that documentation and then have the most important part be not in the native languages, it's a bit of an oversight.
Right, a little bit tokenistic if you ask me, yeah.
Now, to our main topic for today, and Australia prides itself on being a successful multicultural society. According to the 2016 census, nearly half of all Australians were born overseas or had a parent born overseas, and 21% of Australians speak a language other than English at home. So why, therefore, has a recent study examining the representation of culturally diverse Australians in the media found that, well, it's fair to say that the faces we see on TV don't reflect the diversity that we boast about? So it's my pleasure to introduce Anupam Sharma, a director, producer, actor and film consultant, renowned for his support of diversity and pioneering Australia-India film links since 1996, and Nasya Bahfen, a senior lecturer in the Department of Media and Communication at Trobe University. Previously a radio and online journalist, Nasya also worked as a producer for ABC Radio Australia and SBS. Thank you both for your time today.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Fantastic. So this is a very important one, and I love this. It's kind of male, pale and stale is one way that the Australian TV landscape has been described. Ouch. But Anupam, is the news really all that bad? Is it as bad as they say?
Look, I wouldn't comment about male and pale, because doing that would be falling into the trap of the same thing which we are complaining, which is the gender stereotype, color stereotype. But stale is something I would definitely agree with. And you started off the program by saying, our media, is it as diverse? I take the other view. Look at the society, and you've given some amazing figures about that. 2 out of 5 Australians speak another language. People are of different backgrounds. What I'm saying is a basic, truthful thing to do in Australia, which is accurately represent our streets on our screen. It's as simple as that. We don't want tokenism. I've been here for 35 years. I used to take the NESB section, which is non-English speaking background, and I used to take another section, and now I take the CAL section in every application, which is a cultural and linguistically diverse. So the acronyms keep on changing.
You're already looking at it from a positive. Yeah, you're looking at it from a positive standpoint. It was quite a negative question, but I really appreciate that.
But
Nasya, Sorry, continue.
No, so I'm saying, the acronyms have changed, but the fact hasn't. And our coming generations still don't see themselves on the screen, whether they are wearing a hijab, whether they are wearing a bandana, whether they are doing any other cultural practice. Till we have accurate representation of streets on screens, we are fooling us.
Yeah, and Nasya, I imagine you've seen a very similar story play out in recent years as well.
Absolutely. I work teaching the future journalism or the future media professionals. And over time, we've seen slightly more of an increase in the number of people from culturally and linguistically diverse background considering the media as a career. But those figures that you were speaking about and that Anupam was also referencing, if we have 49% of the Australian population with at least one parent born overseas, and I understand that born overseas might be from a Western country, that's bolstered by other statistics from the most recent census. I know a census was conducted recently, but the figures for that haven't come out. So in 2016, as you said, 1/5 of Australians speak another language at home. And I agree with Anupam. It is an issue when this diversity isn't depicted on screen. And I can't remember the name of the comedian who suggested that if you wake up from surgery and you look around you and there is not a single nurse or doctor or health professional from an Indian or an Asian background, then get the hell out of there, because you're not actually in a hospital in 21st century Australia. You're on the set of a hospital drama. That's the sort of disparity, I guess, that you see on screen compared to Screen Australia did a study which I compared to the 2016 census figures. And, positively, the only segment that was overrepresented on our screens was Indigenous representation. Every other factor of diversity was underrepresented on the screen, be that LGBT, be that people with a disability in Australia, or people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. The proportions simply did not match up with the figures from the census. And obviously that's an issue.
Yeah, Nasya, research shows that diversity is good for business, and we've talked about it before on Ticker Talks here. But why isn't the Australian media keeping up, do you think?
I think it's just a very slow burn in terms of the process. And we found that companies who have tried to depict members of a diverse 21st century Australia, we find there's a lot of blowback, particularly if that advertising is digital. So you have companies like Optus and you have companies like Big W trying to depict Australians from diverse backgrounds in their online advertising. National Australia Bank was another one. And there was so much pushback, that perhaps, one of the negative effects of that is that these companies might think that the effort and the labour and the cost of putting somebody on to moderate the comments may not be worth it. But I do think that this is something that you have to go along. And even media organisations themselves are trying to reach out to diverse audiences. And you'll notice recently a lot of commercial news organisations haven't been doing what they've done in the past, which is put up different minority groups in incredibly negative terms. And it's not controversial to say that there are some groups in Australian society who have had a very problematic relationship with the media. And in recent times, particularly with the pandemic, some of the coverage around these groups hasn't been as virulent. And I suspect it could be a recognition that if these new markets are comprised of people from diverse backgrounds, maybe the commercial media is feeling the pinch in terms of where it really matters, which is the hip pocket. If Australia is becoming more diverse, then you're going to have to reach out to those communities if you want their subscription figures, if you don't want them to shy away from consuming their content. So money, unfortunately, talks, and a very realistic sort of place to be for a lot of media outlets today is to recognise that they have to reflect their potential target market.
That was an incredibly succinct rundown, and so thank you for that. And Anupam, what things need to be done to facilitate that change that we were just speaking about, and what things could be done to improve the situation from where you sit?
I think from where I sit, the key thing is to make fundamental changes. We don't need tokenistic changes. We, as in Australia, don't need marking out people. So normalization of diversity is the key. Whether it was your previous question about business, I mean, linking diversity to business is another narrative to put diversity in a little nutshell. And now you have various communication and advertising companies which are springing up, which specialize in multicultural communication. There is no multicultural communication or non-multicultural communication or mainstream. It is Australian communication. So I think normalizing diversity would be the key. If you put a brown face on screen, you're using a Band-Aid to cure cancer. But if you have various people in the writing group, in the producing group, in the directing group, people who are telling their stories the way they want to be, that's when you will have normalization of diversity. So till the time we keep on marking diversity, we keep on highlighting people, oh, you are doing this, you are that, diversity won't be normalized, and we will keep on having groups, who either want favorable treatment or want better representation. It's all about accurate representation of simple as that.
Anupam and Nasya, thank you so much for joining us on today's program, and this is obviously an ongoing discussion that needs to be had, so I really appreciate getting both of your insight here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for putting this on the platform. Thank you.
As always, an incredible group of people. Do you want to just summarise quickly what we discussed today?
Look, it's just a start to the conversation, and I just really loved both of our guests' honesty and directness, and I think what they said so resonated with me, where yes, we talk about all kinds of things, but what are we actually doing about it, and what are we normalising, and should we not be inclusive of all Australians is my question.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating discussion. But Eva, thank you again. And if you have any questions about how to reach your multicultural audiences, please get in touch with the team over at Polaron. The contact details are along the screen there. I'm Mike Loder, Eva Hussein. Thank you so much for joining us for today's discussion. I'll see you again soon. Be well.